Well, good morning. My name is Amanda Tarling, and I'm talking this morning about how learning to become a wildlife photographer has increased my spirituality to the nth degree. I've often wondered, how does one describe the word spiritual? I've asked a number of people over the years, and I so often hear, oh, it's nature, it's spending time in nature, and I too would answer exactly the same. Spirituality for me is what makes my heart sing, and often what makes my heart sing is being out in nature. Becoming a wildlife photographer has taught me to see the world with fresh eyes, increasing my awareness and enriching my spiritual connection. I'd like to share with you how one trip in particular cemented this intense relationship between me, my camera, and the natural world. Awareness, or paying attention. How much of our lives do we do on autopilot? If I were to ask you, did you notice a particular tree or plant or something in the natural world on your journey here? Or have you completely forgotten your journey to get here this morning? Photography has taught me to be so acutely aware of every sound, the movement of the leaves, the wind in the trees, the snap of a twig. Learning about photography has really taught me to notice, to see light and shadow, form, texture, color, patterns, and reflections. Photography is teaching me to see with the eyes of my heart, to slow down and notice what I would otherwise have missed. You may remember that a few weeks ago, Riley Yeo was standing here, and her topic was everything is holy now, and I did an internal hallelujah, because that is exactly how I feel when I'm out in the woods taking photographs. You know, I was trying to think of what I could equate this to, and I'm not someone that prays, but I wonder if it would help if I said photography has become like a prayer for me, a silent act of worship and reverence. Photography is the most fabulous, self-imposed meditative state of waiting and listening, and waiting and listening. Becoming completely still and yet entirely aware. Being still in nature is a most glorious gift. The more I look, the more I see. I'm going to start sharing some photographs with you, and a note that I took all of the photographs except the ones that I am actually in. Thank you, Dick. The more I look, the more I see, down to the minutiae of the forest, the lichen, the mosses, the fungi. Our seventh principle reminds us that we are a part of all existence. We are part of that web, and I am never as acutely aware of that as when I am waiting in the torrential rain for the glimpse of an apex predator. It is grueling to be in the elements all day waiting. We'll see some video shortly about that. And it's in the waiting that the magic happened. But let me tell you how this particular trip came about. Last September, I had a medical event on a beach up near Cape Scott. I was unconscious and could easily have perished if it wasn't for 4 photographers who found me, one of whom has just won an Emmy for Island of the Sea Wolves. I became his friend, we started talking, and at some point in our conversation, he said, well, do you want to come with me next year to where I filmed Island of the Sea Wolf? Did I want to come with him? So, up to the wilds of Vancouver Island I went. This is the area that we traveled, very remote. We never saw a single other person while we were there. It's wild, it's breathtakingly beautiful. We had no running water. We had no electricity. We had no cell service. Can you imagine for a moment going for 10 days with no cell service? I didn't know how Callum was. We had 0 creature comforts. I had a good laugh unpacking my electric toothbrush. I'm not entirely sure where I thought I was going to plug that in. Just as we sat down for lunch on our first day, we spotted wolves way across the estuary. So of course, We left our lunch uneaten, grabbed all our gear and our cameras, and ran down to the beach to get pictures of these elusive animals. As we left the beach, a single wolf began a long, slow howl. That haunting sound will stay with me forever. Truly the call of the wild. It was eerie, uncanny, and possibly the most beautiful sound I have ever heard. And a spoiler alert, 9 days, and we never saw the wolves again. 9 days living in tents as winter approached at the end of October on the wild west coast of Vancouver Island. We were outside all day, no matter the conditions. On day one, I just wanted to go home to my comfy bed. In fact, that first night, lying on my uncomfortable mattress in my teeny tiny tent in the forest, all I could think of was, I'm not hardy enough. I just want to go home. Those first few nights, I would lie in bed and I would count how many nights I had to get through. Even getting to the bathroom was an experience. You had to hike about 200 meters down a beautiful forested path by day and a pitch black trail at night, populated by wolves, bears, and cougars, which was an experience to say the least. There is something unique about leaving the comforts of home and being immersed in nature. It's as if all of my senses were more finely tuned. I was so much more present and aware. Every morning, we would get up and pack up our gear. And sometimes, this looks easy, doesn't it? Just walk out to the boat. We are each carrying tens of thousands of dollars worth of camera equipment. We have to wear waders to wade to the boat. And then in hip-deep water, we have to get our 30-pound packs into the Zodiac and then ourselves into the Zodiac. So the getting into the boat was just the first in the step of challenges, shall we say. I'm just about to show you 3 different movies. They're very short. The first is walking in waist-deep water. Again, with the big camera pack and all the gear on the back. Looks lovely and beautiful and wonderful until you realize I can't see my feet, I have no idea what I'm stepping on, and I am terrified I'm about to go for a swim. See, looks lovely, doesn't it? So serene, so calm. I am absolutely terrified I'm going to fall and wreck my camera. Dick, I might need your help because I gotta move this out of the way. Can you just move that for me? This bar so I need to get to the next slide. Yeah, that's all I need. Perfect. Thank you. Oh, not to worry. Move that. This was on the Zodiac, and the beauty was just mind-boggling. We spent 8 hours in that. 8 hours. I really wanted to go home.
Were you filming that part?
I wasn't. I'm the second from the last. Look how unhappy I looked. For the entire trip, we didn't see a single other human being. There were 6 of us. The silence only broken by the lapping of the waves on the shore, the wind and the call of the birds, and the creaking of the trees. But let me tell you about a typical day. We often went to the mouth of a river that was teeming with salmon, some prettier than others. We would have a cone of silence around us for the entire day as we waited and waited. We watched seagulls, hundreds of seagulls, who would fly up and dive straight down into about 2 inches of water, and if they were lucky, caught a single salmon egg. And then they'd do it again and again. On our first day at the river, after hours of waiting, This lovely female bear poked her nose out, and we all took a collective breath. Are we still enough? Are we quiet enough that she'll come down to the river? We guessed she had probably never seen humans before we were that remote. Not only did she come down from the river, she started fishing. Yeah, I know. The salmon looks kind of icky, doesn't it? We call these ones zombie salmon because they're only barely alive. But at this time of year, because this bear in particular, had put on so much weight, she was incredibly picky. She'd pull a salmon out, and if it was a male, she'd discard it. Then she'd pull another out, and if it was a female, she'd put it down, and with laser-sharp claws, she would just slice open the abdomen, eat the roe, leave the rest of the fish. Because it's all about putting the really important calories on before hibernation. And then a little black face appeared, and her cub came down to the water. And the cub moseyed over to where Mom was chomping on a salmon. And the cub grabbed the salmon and walked away. You can see the cub's eyes. Is Mom gonna come and get me? I have seen moms clobber cubs for this particular behavior. Nope, Mom just got herself another fish. You can see the cub looking over at Mom. Do I get to keep my bounty? This is interesting. You can see the claw ready to come down right on the abdomen and slice it open. Still checking to see if we get to keep our sandy fish or not. Well, that is Mom enjoying a little bit of salmon. And the cub again. It's interesting, some of them have this little white patch on their fronts, but as they grow older, it doesn't seem to stay. This was perhaps my favorite moment. I don't like to put human emotion on animals, but it was a very sweet moment when they touched noses. And this is the bear's den. I had never seen a den before. I have to admit, I was kind of terrified seeing a bear den. What if the bear came home? So we were extremely careful, but it was fascinating to get a good look into a bear den. We returned over the next few days observing the sow and her cub for hours. While the wolves eluded us, we did have plenty of joy seeing hundreds of sea otters. They are the cutest creatures you can imagine. Now, when they lie in the water like that, they keep their paws out because if their paws get wet or stay wet for too long, they'll freeze. They actually have no fat on them, and they stay alive because they have the thickest fur known to any mammal. They have 1 million hair follicles per square inch, which is why they were hunted to extinction. They swim together or lie together in rafts, and they hold hands at night if they're in danger of floating away or if there's a storm coming. The females have pink noses because the males bite. They're incredibly hilarious and inquisitive. And if they need to really anchor themselves in place, they'll wrap bull kelp around them. So you can see on this slide, you can see the kelp that the sea otter has wrapped around it. And these are very different from river otters. So we have river otters in Victoria, but our closest sea otter is out at Race Rocks. Perhaps my fondest memory was something we take completely for granted, a shower. Let me set the scene. Day 4 of sponge baths in my teeny tiny tent. After 4 days of standing in the rain and the mud, and I'm cold and I'm tired and I'm not sleeping well and I'm dreaming of a shower when after dinner, our camp organizer says, "Hey, anybody want a shower?" And I actually got really mad. I'm like, "What do you mean there's a shower? No one told me there was a shower." So she says, "Get your stuff ready." Well, I'm gonna set the scene a little more for you. It's evening. A hurricane is coming. We didn't actually know a hurricane was coming. So the trees are whipping around wildly and the wind is coming sideways and it's pouring rain and it is maybe 3 degrees out. And here's what the shower was. You bring all your stuff outside You have a big tub of water, and you have a pitcher. And she says, just take off your clothes, put the water, soap out there, and you're good. So I dropped the soap twice. Have you ever dropped soap on a forest floor? It was more pine needles than it was soap. I couldn't find my towel because I didn't have my glasses on. I dropped everything in the mud. Finally ready for that first pitcher of water, thinking, I don't even want to do this. I want to bring the water back. This is ridiculous. First pitcher of water, and I was in heaven. It was truly one of the most incredible experiences I've ever had in my life, and I went on to have 2 more showers. So, didn't see any wolves, but I learned about having an outdoor shower, which was really quite amazing. This was truly the turning point in my trip at day 4 of 9. Maybe a baptism to become a real wildlife photographer, instead of wondering when on earth the organizers were going to let us go home and get back on the boat and get out of the rain. I relished every minute. I had the gear. I just had to change my thinking about what I was doing and how I was feeling. I kept thinking to myself, Amanda, I need to figure out what I can photograph and how I can photograph and let go of everything else because it doesn't matter in this moment. What began over a year ago with an accident on the beach led to a chance meeting with one of Canada's best cinematographers and led to an incredible 9 days. All of that time and effort, and we never saw wolves again. Did it matter? Yeah, it did, but only a little bit. We got to spend the most incredible time in a place where almost nobody goes. We saw the most beautiful sights, bears and sea otters, and the most unbelievable number of birds, including a rhinoceros oculate. Oh, here's a shower in broad daylight. Looks lovely, doesn't it? We saw shipwrecks that littered the beaches. This is called a ratfish. It's actually a very, very small shark, and it washed up on our first day, and it is so poisonous, no other predators ate from it. No seagulls, no bird, nothing touched this fish. A little barred owl came to visit us. Now, I am not an astrophotographer, and this was taken with my cell phone on the way to the bathroom one night when I thought to look up. It's the core of the Milky Way with my cell phone. I learned that I'm tougher than I thought. I learned I can rough it and enjoy it. I really learned that the magic happens, the visceral lesson that everything is holy now when you are out in nature, waiting and noticing. I could have been bored or regretful, but instead, I spent the time trying to see more. How many different types of moss could I see? How many different colors of green could I count? I found myself being truly astonished at the amount of rain that can fall from the sky. It's me standing up with the camera, not looking very happy. Eight hours, friends. 8 hours. Whatever I do, it just wants to play again. Aww. I found myself being truly astonished at the amount of rain that can fall from the sky. And it wasn't all about photographing animals. It was the unsurpassed glory of being in a remote location. It was about awareness. It was about watching. It was about studying tiny plants. How does this apply to you? Well, we've all become photographers with cell phones, haven't we? How often do you really think about what you're taking a picture of? When you lift up your cell phone to take a picture, what are you framing? Who are you looking at? Why are you taking that picture? What is it telling you? What are you going to look like? What are you going to think about it when you look at it in the future? How does having a lens change your perspective on whatever it is you're looking at? Can you now start to be more perceptive of what you are taking a picture of, more present, more grounded, no matter what you're taking a picture of? I got home from my comfortable bed I had longed for and wished that I was back in the forest, sharing the land with the bears and the wolves and the cougars. When you are next in nature, be it in a park or on a mountaintop, I encourage you to look at it with the eyes of a photographer. What can you see with your heart? I have 2 quick postscripts. The trip guide let me keep my trail camera up, and it is still up. So there is a chance I will have hundreds of hours of videos of wolves. And I'm going back in March. On my trip, I deepened my connection to the sacred, reminded my heart that there is awe and wonder all around. I just have to see it. Thank you, friends.